Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le Juge,
Mr. President,
Monsieur Ahmed Al-Faqi
Your Honors, Mr. Ahmed Al-Faqi Al-Mahdi, known as Abdou Tourab, this being his nom de guerre, now appears before your chamber. He will answer charges relating to the attack in Timbuktu in June and July 2012, attacks upon highly significant historic and religious buildings. These buildings, for the most part mausoleums of Muslim saints, were the most well-known buildings within Timbuktu, and they were a major part of that ancient city's historic heritage. In a broader sense, they were part of the heritage of Mali and of all of Africa, and indeed the entire world. All but one were recorded on the World Heritage List, and yet these buildings were deliberately destroyed by Mr. Al-Mahdi and his co-perpetrators as the people of Timbuktu stood there powerless. Mr. Al-Mahdi, a member of Ansar Din, was directly involved in the groups that were established by two armed groups, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Akim, and Ansar Dina, during the occupation of Timbuktu in 2012. Working through these bodies, these groups, he took part in a number of activities intended to impose their ideology upon the people and to dominate them. In particular, he was appointed to head up the Hezbollah, the Morality Brigade. In April 2012, he set up this body and led it from the time of its creation until September 2012 as the leader of the Hezbollah, which he led directly. He supervised the attack upon the 10 buildings. My office has gathered a large amount of diverse and highly incriminating evidence showing that the accused played a central role in the destruction. He identified the sites that were to be destroyed. He decided the order in which the buildings would be destroyed, going from the north of the town to the south. He provided the material means to carry out the destruction, and he gave the orders. Mr. President, Your Honors, this must be said, and this must be said clearly. Deliberately leading an attack upon historic monuments and buildings devoted to religion is a war crime that is provided for in the Rome Statute. These are serious crimes that must be brought to justice. As we know, this is the very first time that the International Criminal Court has tried a person accused of such serious crimes. Thus, today's trial is historic. It is particularly historic because the period of time in question was one of destructive rage. The heritage of mankind was ransacked, and this was planned, ransacked by individuals and groups. Their goal was to destroy any worldview that was different from them by destroying the various material elements that lie at the heart of a number of communities. They wanted to destroy these monuments, simply wipe them off the map. Your Honors, this strikes at the very heart of this trial. What is so serious about this crime is that it is a deep attack upon the identity of a population, their memory, and their very future. This is a crime for which there is a victim, and I speak of the true wealth of communities, entire communities. This is a crime that leaves us all diminished, a crime that strikes a blow and does great harm to the universal values that we must protect. The evidence that my office has gathered will lead you to Timbuktu, a city that was oppressed, a city that bore scars, a city that was badly damaged over a 10-day period in 2012. What happened in Timbuktu is truly a dark page in the history of this city. Allow me to tell you that the mausoleums of the holy saints, the holy Muslim saints, represented something very important. They were something very important to the hearts of people for many centuries. I will continue my remarks in English, if you will.
Timbuktu is indeed an ancient and vibrant city. Timbuktu's name is one that is commonly associated with a rich history and culture. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Timbuktu became a regional center of economic activity and trade. More importantly, it blossomed into one of Africa's most vibrant intellectual and spiritual capitals. It played an essential role in the expansion of Islam in Africa. It was, to be sure, the cradle of education, where enlightenment was nurtured for the benefit of generations of students, attracting scholars from far and wide. Some of these sages would be venerated as Muslim saints, and mausoleums would be erected on their graves to honor their memory, as well as the notable contributions they made to the lives of people of Timbuktu and beyond. These mausoleums, which survived the ravages of time, have continued to play a fundamental, even foundational role in both the life within the city gates and beyond the city's borders. These monuments, Your Honors, were living testimony to Timbuktu's glorious past. These mausoleums undoubtedly also served as a unique testament to the city's urban settlements. But above all, they were the embodiment of Malian history, captured in tangible form from an era long gone, yet still very much vivid in the memory and pride of the people who so dearly cherished them. The mausoleums also testify to the historical role Timbuktu played in the spread of Islam in Africa and in the history of Africa itself. They are relics of a great chapter in humankind's intellectual and spiritual development on the continent, which gave Timbuktu its standing in the world. This is particularly important in a society that is partly rooted in oral tradition. And it is notably for these reasons that they are so precious and were inscribed in the World Heritage List in 1988. What is more, the mausoleums of Timbuktu played and continue to play an important religious role in the daily lives of the city's inhabitants. Mausoleums are sacred places of worship. They are frequently visited by the city's residents. Pilgrims would also come from distant places to pay their respects and to pray. Going to the mausoleums was and still is an expression of one's faith and religious piety. It is specifically these deeply rooted religious practices and beliefs that Ansar Din and Akim wanted to annihilate by destroying these mausoleums. Through their brutal and callous acts, they made it impossible for the inhabitants of Timbuktu to devote themselves to their religious practices during the 10 months of occupation of their city. Our evidence, Your Honors, will demonstrate how important these mausoleums were to the people of Timbuktu. During the course of this trial, you will hear from witness P0431. The testimony to be tendered by this witness will describe how, as soon as the armed groups were driven out of the city in 2013, the residents of Timbuktu returned to pray at the ruins of the mausoleums. This is how deep the connection is between the mausoleums and the people of Timbuktu. Additionally, the mausoleums played a great key role in fostering the social cohesion that is so characteristic of Timbuktu. The mausoleums are related to families who take care of them and resort when needed to masons. These masons are considered to be a living human treasures for their unique craftsmanship. And while they are the ones who maintain these buildings, the renovation of a mausoleum is a task in which the entire community joins and participates. Everyone helps the masons. At the level of neighborhoods, materials are collected and meetings are held. It is an event that brings together and unites worshipers, different age groups, and the community as a whole. These are not the only social functions linked to the mausoleums. The mausoleums, which were destroyed, also contributed greatly to what I would call the workshop of peaceful coexistence. Consider the names of the mausoleums. They remind us that the Muslim saints to whom the mausoleums were dedicated came from different backgrounds and tribes. One is called the Sidi Mahmud ben Omar Muhammad Aki Mausoleum, after the name of the saint, Sidi Mahmud ben Omar Muhammad Aki, a San Haji who lived in the 16th century. Another one is called the Sheikh Sidi Ahmed ben Amar Aragadi. This was named after a revered Muslim scholar and saint, a Kunta, who lived in the 18th century. By the mere fact of their names, these mausoleums conveyed a message of tolerance and peaceful existence, transcending differences. Last but certainly not least, the destroyed mausoleums played a crucial role in shaping the identity of the people of Timbuktu. Timbuktu is known as the city of 333 saints. The mausoleums were the contemporary living symbol of the city. As one resident of the city declared at the time of the destructions, and I quote, "The people are very, very angry today because the mausoleum is the symbol of Timbuktu." To destroy Timbuktu's mausoleums is therefore to erase an element of collective identity built through the ages. It is to eradicate a civilization's landmark. It is the destruction of the roots of an entire people which irremediably affects its social attitudes, practices, and structures. Another inhabitant of Timbuktu summarized this notion as follows: Timbuktu is on the verge of losing her soul. Timbuktu is threatened by outrageous acts of vandalism. Timbuktu is being held under a sharpened blade, ready for use in a cold-blooded murder. Your Honors, culture is who we are. Our ancestors created paintings, sculptures, mosques, temples, and other forms of cultural possessions all around us. They put their hearts and souls into the creation of such cultural heritage so that it represents the cultural identity of their times and is passed on for the benefit of future generations. Indeed, this cultural heritage shapes the spirit and identity of our own generation and of generations to come. With the passage of time, they become archetypes of social memory from which individuals shape their identity and grow. Make no mistake, for centuries, the mausoleums of Timbuktu have been an important foundational block on which the identity of the city's inhabitants has been built. That continues to be very much true today. To be born and raised in Timbuktu is to be inspired and shaped by the centuries-old mosques and mausoleums that personify this historic city's cultural foundation. I ask all of us to imagine, if only for a second, what it must have felt like then, in that fateful day in 2012, that fateful period, to witness the wanton destruction of this cherished cultural heritage, a deliberate assault on one's identity, spiritual beliefs, and prized cultural possessions. Your Honors, all of this was reduced to dust by a destruction operation led by the accused. By eradicating the mausoleums, Mr. Al-Mahdi intentionally destroyed something that is intangible and immeasurable. Mr. Al-Mahdi himself comes from the Timbuktu region, and as a result, was fully aware of the importance of the mausoleums and their significance to the city's inhabitants. Nonetheless, he showed determination and focus in his supervision of the operations. He ensured he was present at every single site that was targeted and destroyed. You can see him in video clips presented, unreservedly holding his pickaxe. You can also hear him confidently and repeatedly attempting to justify these crimes by reiterating his resolve to eliminate all things he labeled as being inappropriate to Timbuktu. Images speak 1,000 words indeed, but so does the accused expressed intent. These are all found in the open source material included in the prosecution and defense joint list of evidence. Your Honors, the commission of such a crime is not merely a deplorable event. This type of crime, wherever it may happen in the world, presents the international community today with enormous challenges. And with your indulgence, I would like to highlight 3 general points in this regard. The first is that deliberate attacks on cultural property are often the precursor to the worst outrages against a population. As some learned observers have noted, the struggle to defend cultural property of a population is an integral part of the humanitarian operation aimed at protecting that population. The second aspect, one of greater concern, is that deliberate attacks on cultural property have become actual weapons of war. They are being used to eliminate entire communities and wipe out the traces left of them, their history and identity, as though they never existed. Let us consider the example of the town of Zvornik. As the trier of fact established in the relevant case, the Serbs destroyed 5 mosques in that town. Later, the mayor of the overrun town was quoted uttering this revisionist account. There were never, he proclaimed, any mosques in Zvornik, unquote. To be sure, attacks on historic monuments and buildings dedicated to religion are de facto attacks on the very people that hold such tangible possessions dear and near to their cultural identity. Lastly, the protection of cultural heritage is an essential part of the post-conflict social reconstruction and reconciliation process. This is because cultural heritage gives meaning as well as a sense of continuity and direction from the past to the future. Cultural heritage provides reference points. Once destroyed, as noted by the UN International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, the restoration of cultural heritage never brings back its inherent value. These complex issues and concerns must propel us to act. Deliberate attacks against historic monuments and buildings dedicated to religion are grave offenses with significant debilitating impact, first on affected communities, but also far beyond the socio-geographical space they occupy. We must stand firm in our resolve to end impunity for such serious crimes. Your Honors, today, the accused, Mr. Ahmed Al-Faqi Al-Mahdi, has confirmed that he makes an admission of guilt. It is now entirely for your honors to consider his admission of guilt, which he made through the agreement he has signed with my office. This is an admission the accused has consistently given and voluntarily so, while fully informed and assisted by legal counsel. The general terms of this agreement were published on Friday last week. He fully recognizes the facts of the case and his own individual responsibility. I am pleased and satisfied with this development in the case. I am satisfied because it is the first ever admission of guilt before the court. Mr. Al-Mahdi was transferred to the court less than 1 year ago. The current trial should take only a few days. It will contribute to the expeditiousness of proceedings, and such expeditiousness will benefit the victims just as much as it will benefit the accused. Above all, I am satisfied because Mr. Al-Mahdi's admission directly helps bring justice. It helps uncover the truth and leads to the catharsis that should arise from any judicial process. In preparation of this case, my office collected overwhelming evidence of guilt of the accused. You will have the opportunity to judge this for yourselves in the coming hours. An admission of guilt facilitates the establishment of the truth. The fact that the accused recognizes his criminal responsibility is crucial for Timbuktu's victims. It will also support the conciliation process in the field. In addition, this admission of guilt and your Honor's ultimate judgment will set a clear precedent, sending an important and positive message to the entire world. One must not forget that this attack rightfully raised a chorus of protest, not only from the affected community and Mali more generally, but also from the international community. The African Union, the United Nations Security Council, the Economic Community of West African States, UNESCO, and numerous states expressed their strong condemnation of the war crime committed. The United Nations Security Council itself stated that the perpetrators must be held accountable, while the chairperson of the African group at UNESCO emphasized that it is not only Mali which is affected by these destructions. Mali's heritage sites are Africa's heritage sites, and they are also the world's heritage sites, unquote. Indeed, it is our world heritage that was harmed by the destruction of 9 UNESCO-listed sites, which were among the 10 destroyed sites in Timbuktu. Your Honors, the appeals of the Malian and the international community to take action against such serious crimes must yield results. It falls to your honors to ensure that the accused is held responsible. It falls to your chamber to lay the first block of the court's jurisprudence in this area. The world in the 21st century has witnessed too many attacks against historic monuments and buildings dedicated to religion. This worrying trend must be stopped in its tracks. This regrettable reality must cease to be. Recently, we have seen the calamitous destruction of Palmyra, and just last month, we saw the so-called ISIS destroy yet another historic monument, a mausoleum north of Baghdad. My message today is this: our cultural heritage is not a luxury good. Our cultural heritage is a vital instrument of human development. To protect cultural property is to protect our culture, our history, our identity, and our ways of expressing faith and practicing religion for current and future generations. We must protect our common heritage from desecration, ravages, and the long-term effects of such destructive acts. The severity of the crimes committed in this case calls for an appropriate punishment, one that is firm and serves as a deterrent while taking into account all of the accused's particular circumstances, including his admission of guilt and cooperation. Your judgment is awaited from the ancient streets of Timbuktu and throughout Mali to all four corners of the world. As I have mentioned in prior proceedings in this case, history itself, whose physical embodiment is at peril through such attacks, will not be generous to our failure to care or to act decisively. I thank you, Mr. President, Your Honors, for your attention. And with your leave, I will now give the floor to my learned colleague, Mr. Gilles Dutertre, the senior trial lawyer from the prosecution team, to present a more detailed outline of the case. I thank you.
Thank you. Mr.